My wife says I'm paranoid, but paranoia is just pattern recognition with a bad attitude, and after 15 years of marriage to Mara, I've developed quite the collection of patterns. The name's Nate Kavanaugh, 42 years old, and I fix computers for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps my brain sharp. Most people think IT repair is just plugging cables and rebooting systems, but the real work happens in the spaces between, reading the signs, following the digital breadcrumbs, understanding what people don't want you to see. Like tonight, watching Mara gather her things for another late work session. She's 40, works in HR at Meridian Solutions, and lately, she's been putting in more overtime than a surgeon during flu season. Her auburn hair is perfectly styled despite the supposed long day, and she's wearing the black dress that used to be reserved for our anniversary dinners. Another team meeting? I ask from the kitchen table, not looking up from my laptop screen. Strategic planning session, she replies, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. Alan wants the quarterly reports restructured before the board presentation. Alan Ryder, regional director, her boss, drives a BMW that costs more than I make in 2 years. Married to some socialite named Susan, lives in the fancy part of town where the lawns look like golf courses and the mailboxes cost more than my monthly rent. Jeremy's got that science project due tomorrow, I mention. You can handle it, Mara says, grabbing her purse. You're better with that technical stuff anyway. The front door closes with a soft click, and I listen to her heels tapping down our driveway. Through the window, I watch her Mercedes, a company car, she always reminds me, disappear around the corner. Dad? Jeremy appears in the doorway, 13 years old and already showing signs of inheriting my skeptical nature. Mom working late again? Apparently. He nods, understanding more than he should at his age. Want help with dinner? We make grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, eating in comfortable silence while rain patters against the windows. Jeremy tells me about his day at school, the bullies in his math class, the teacher who assigns too much homework. Normal 13-year-old problems. I listen, respond, try to be present, but part of my mind keeps circling back to patterns. Mara's late nights started 3 months ago. Always on Wednesdays and Fridays, always strategic planning, or team building, or quarterly reviews. Always with Alan's name dropped casually into the explanation, like seasoning in soup, just enough to flavor the lie, not enough to overpower it. After Jeremy goes to bed, I sit in my home office, staring at the computer screen. The smart thing would be to ignore my suspicions, trust my wife, focus on being a good father and provider. The smart thing would be to mind my own business. But I've never been particularly smart that way. I open a new document and start typing. Date, time, location, excuse given. Just facts, no interpretation, no emotional commentary. If I'm wrong, I'll delete the file and pretend this never happened. If I'm right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. My phone buzzes with a text from Marco, my old friend who runs a private security consulting firm downtown. Drinks tomorrow? Got some interesting stories from the corporate surveillance world? Marco used to be a cop before he discovered that private sector pays better and asks fewer questions. He's got contacts everywhere, knows all the gossip, and has a talent for finding information that people prefer to keep buried. Sure, I text back. Might have some questions for you too. Mara comes home at 11:30, smelling like wine and expensive cologne that definitely isn't mine. She kisses my forehead absently, mumbles something about productive meetings, and disappears into the bathroom for her nightly routine. I pretend to be asleep when she slides into bed, but I'm wide awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. 15 years of marriage, and I can tell when she's really sleeping versus when she's pretending. Tonight, she's pretending too. The next morning brings coffee, small talk, and the familiar dance of a couple going through the motions. Mara mentions another late night coming up, some crisis with the Henderson account that requires immediate attention. She's getting sloppy with the details, mixing up client names and project timelines. Sounds stressful, I say, buttering toast. You have no idea, she replies, not meeting my eyes. After she leaves for work, I drop Jeremy at school and head to my first appointment of the day, a dental office with a server that keeps crashing. Routine work, muscle memory, which leaves my mind free to wander. The thing about betrayal is that it's rarely sudden. It builds slowly, like water damage behind drywall. By the time you see the stains, the structure is already compromised. The signs were there, I just wasn't ready to read them. But I'm reading them now. That afternoon, I meet Marco at Finnegan's, a dive bar downtown where the beer is cheap and the conversations are private. He's already claimed our usual booth in the back corner, nursing a whiskey and scrolling through his phone. You look like hell, he says without looking up. Thanks, you're a real confidence booster. Marco finally raises his head, studying me with cop eyes that miss nothing. What's eating you? I order a beer and consider my words carefully. Marco's loyal, but he's also practical. If I sound like a paranoid husband jumping at shadows, he'll tell me to go home and work on my marriage. If I present the facts clearly, professionally, he might actually help. Hypothetically, I begin. If someone wanted to verify whether their spouse was being truthful about working late, what would be the most efficient approach? Marco grins. Hypothetically, that someone would start with phone records, credit card statements, and social media activity. Digital footprints don't lie, even when people do. And if that hypothetical someone discovered their spouse was being less than truthful? Depends on the goal. Divorce proceedings, custody arrangements, or just satisfying curiosity? I take a long drink, considering. Justice. Justice is expensive and messy. Revenge is cheaper and more satisfying. What's the difference? Justice follows rules. Revenge makes its own. We sit in silence for a moment, watching the evening news on the bar's ancient television. Some politician caught in a scandal, another corporate executive facing fraud charges. The usual parade of powerful people discovering that consequences exist. You know what I do for a living, Marco continues. Corporate security, background checks, surveillance. I see a lot of marriages fall apart, a lot of people who thought they were untouchable until someone decided to touch them anyway. Any advice? Document everything, assume nothing, and remember, the truth always comes out. The only question is whether you're the one controlling how it surfaces. I finish my beer and head home, Marco's words echoing in my head. Mara's car isn't in the driveway, which means another late night, another round of strategic planning with Alan. Jeremy's doing homework at the kitchen table when I walk in, textbooks spread around him like defensive fortifications. How's the science project coming? Almost done. Just need to write the conclusion. He looks up, studying my face with an expression too mature for his age. Everything okay, Dad? Everything's fine. Just a long day. He nods, but I can tell he doesn't believe me. Smart kid. Gets it from his mother, unfortunately. That night, I start my own research project. Phone records show calls to numbers I don't recognize. Credit card statements reveal charges at restaurants I've never been to, hotels I've never seen. Social media is more careful. Mara's always been smart about her online presence, but even careful people make mistakes. Like the photo she posted 3 days ago. It's innocent enough at first glance. Mara and several colleagues at what appears to be a work function, everyone smiling at the camera, wine glasses raised in a toast. The caption reads, "Great team building session with the Meridian family." But I've been fixing computers long enough to know that every digital image contains metadata, information about when and where the photo was taken, what device captured it, even the camera settings used. Most people never think to check. This photo was taken at the Sheraton downtown, last Wednesday, at 9:47 p.m. I cross-referenced the timestamp with Mara's story about working late at the office. She told me the meeting ended at 10, that she came straight home afterward. But the metadata doesn't lie. She was at the Sheraton at 9:47, which means she lied about where she was. More interesting is what the metadata doesn't show. I zoom in on the image, studying faces, body language, positioning. Mara's standing slightly apart from the group, and there's something in her expression, a particular kind of smile I recognize from our early dating days. But the real revelation comes when I enhance the background. There, barely visible in the reflection of a mirror behind the bar, is another figure. Male, tall, wearing a suit that probably costs more than my monthly salary. Alan Ryder, and his hand is resting on Mara's waist. I sit back in my chair, staring at the screen. 15 years of marriage, and it comes down to this: a reflected image in a hotel bar mirror, captured accidentally in a team-building photo. Nothing says strategic planning like your wife's boss grabbing her waist at the Sheraton. I save the image to 3 different locations, print 2 copies, and email the file to myself at 2 separate accounts. Then I start making a list. The next morning starts like any other, except now I'm seeing everything through a different lens. Mara's humming while she makes coffee, actually humming, like she's starring in her own personal romantic comedy. She's wearing the blue blouse that brings out her eyes, the one I bought her for her last birthday. "You seem happy," I observe, watching her over my newspaper. "Just looking forward to the day. Big presentation this afternoon." "With Alan?" "Among others." She doesn't quite meet my eyes. "Might run late again. You know how these things go." I nod sympathetically. Of course. Team building is so important. Something flickers across her face. Uncertainty, maybe guilt, but it passes quickly. She kisses my cheek and heads for the door, leaving behind the scent of perfume and deception. After dropping Jeremy at school, I drive to Marco's office. It's located in a strip mall between a tax preparation service and a nail salon, which is perfect camouflage for the kind of work he actually does. The sign on the door reads, "Meridian Consulting." No relation to Mara's company, just one of those coincidences that makes you believe in cosmic irony. "You look better today," Marco says, gesturing for me to sit in the chair across from his desk. More focused. "I found something." I slide the printed photo across to him. "Check the background, mirror reflection." Marco examines the image with professional interest, then pulls out a magnifying glass for a closer look. Hotel bar, intimate positioning, body language suggests familiarity. He looks up. "This your wife?" "And her boss." "Married boss?" "Very married. 2 kids, big house, wife who chairs the hospital charity board." Marco leans back in his chair, fingers steepled. "What's your goal here, Nate? Because once we start down this road, there's no going back." It's a fair question. Part of me wants to confront Mara directly, have an adult conversation about our marriage and what's gone wrong. Part of me wants to pretend I never saw the photo, never noticed the patterns, never started asking questions. But the larger part, the part that's been fixing other people's problems for 20 years, wants to see this through to its logical conclusion. "I want the truth," I say. "All of it." Marco nods slowly. "Truth is expensive. You sure you can afford it? More expensive than living a lie?" "Fair point." He opens a desk drawer and pulls out a tablet. "Let's start with the basics. Full name, employer, home address, vehicle information." I provide Alan Ryder's details while Marco takes notes. He's thorough, professional, treating this like any other case, which I suppose it is, from his perspective. Social media presence? LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, typical corporate executive stuff? Good. Social media is where people get careless. Marco's fingers dance across the tablet screen. "Ah, here we go. Alan Ryder, Regional Director, Meridian Solutions, married to Susan Ryder, née Patterson. 2 children, ages 16 and 14, lives at 847 Maple Ridge Drive." He shows me the screen, displaying Alan's Facebook profile. The cover photo shows a perfect family at some tropical resort. Alan, Susan, and their 2 kids, all smiles and matching vacation outfits. The kind of family portrait that screams, "We're happy and successful, and definitely not having affairs with subordinates. Recent posts? Marco scrolls through Alan's timeline. Mostly business stuff, some family photos, a few political opinions that probably violate company policy. He pauses. Wait, here's something interesting. The post is from last Friday, the same day Mara claimed to be working late on the Henderson account. It's a photo of Alan at what appears to be a restaurant, wine glass raised toward the camera. The caption reads, "Celebrating another successful quarter with the team." But what catches my attention is the timestamp, 8:23 p.m. And in the background, slightly out of focus but unmistakably present, is a woman with auburn hair wearing a black dress. "That's her," I say quietly. "You sure?" "I bought her that dress for our anniversary 3 years ago." Marco screenshots the image and adds it to a growing digital file. "We're building a pattern here, multiple occasions, consistent deception, escalating intimacy. Question is, how far do you want to take this?" I think about Jeremy, about the science projects and grilled cheese dinners and all the small moments that make up a life. I think about 15 years of marriage, of shared dreams and joint bank accounts, and the assumption that we were building something together. Then I think about Mara humming this morning, planning another late night with Alan while I stay home with our son. "I want to send a message," I say. Marco grins. "Now you're talking my language. What kind of message?" "The kind that reaches multiple recipients simultaneously." "Ah, the nuclear option." He pulls out a legal pad and starts writing. "We'll need a distribution list. Wife, obviously. Anyone else?" "His employer, her parents." "Corporate board?" "Even better." Marco's pen moves across the paper, sketching out a plan that's both elegant and devastating in its simplicity. One email, multiple recipients, minimal commentary. Let the evidence speak for itself. Timeline? Soon, before they get more careless and someone else notices. Or before they get more careful and cover their tracks better. We spend the next hour refining the details. Marco provides technical expertise, how to send from an anonymous account, how to ensure maximum impact, how to avoid legal complications. I provide target intelligence, email addresses, corporate hierarchy, family dynamics. By the time I leave his office, we have a plan that would make Sun Tzu proud. Simple, direct, and absolutely ruthless. That afternoon, I pick up Jeremy from school and we stop for ice cream. He orders chocolate chip cookie dough, I get vanilla, and we sit outside despite the October chill. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you and Mom having problems?" The question hits me like a punch to the solar plexus. I study my son's face, seeing Mara's intelligence combined with what I hope is my own sense of justice. "What makes you ask that?" "She's different lately, more, I don't know, like she's thinking about something else all the time. People go through phases, work stress, that kind of thing." Jeremy nods, but I can tell he's not convinced. "If you guys got divorced, would I have to choose sides?" The casual way he asks the question, like he's inquiring about weekend plans, breaks something inside me. This is what betrayal really costs. Not just the marriage, but the collateral damage to innocent bystanders who never asked to be part of the war. "Let's not borrow trouble," I say. "Your mom and I are working through some things, but that doesn't change how we feel about you." "Okay." He takes another bite of ice cream. "But if you did get divorced, I'd want to stay with you, just so you know." We finish our ice cream in silence, both of us pretending this is just another normal afternoon between father and son. But I can feel the weight of impending change, like atmospheric pressure before a storm. That evening, Mara comes home at her usual late hour, full of stories about difficult clients and demanding deadlines. She's getting better at the performance, adding details and emotional color to make the lies more believable. "How was your day?" she asks, settling onto the couch next to me. "Productive. Fixed 3 servers, updated 4 networks, Had ice cream with Jeremy. Sounds nice. She's scrolling through her phone while talking, not really listening. Oh, I might need to travel next month. Conference in Chicago. Alan thinks it would be good for my professional development. Chicago's nice this time of year. You don't mind? I know it's short notice. I look at my wife, really look at her, and try to remember when she stopped being the person I married and became this stranger who lies as easily as breathing. I'm sure you'll have a great time, I say. Later, after she's gone to bed, I sit in my office reviewing the plan one more time. The email is drafted, the recipient list is confirmed, the evidence is compiled and cross-referenced. All I have to do is hit send. My finger hovers over the mouse button for a long moment. Once I do this, there's no taking it back. No pretending I never saw the photos, never noticed the patterns, never connected the dots. But then I think about Jeremy asking if he'd have to choose sides, and I realize the choice has already been made. Not by me, but by Mara, 3 months ago when she decided that strategic planning sessions were more important than family dinners. I click send. The email disappears into the digital ether, carrying its payload of truth to 3 carefully selected targets. No dramatic music, no lightning flashes, just the soft whoosh of electrons carrying information at the speed of light. Within minutes, I receive automated delivery confirmations. The message has reached Susan Ryder at her personal email account. It's been delivered to the Meridian Solutions Corporate Ethics Committee. And it's sitting in the inbox of Mara's father, who checks his email religiously every morning at 6 a.m. I close the laptop and head upstairs, where Mara is sleeping peacefully, unaware that her carefully constructed double life has just been exposed to everyone who matters. Tomorrow should be interesting. The first domino falls at 6:47 a.m. I'm in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rings. The caller ID shows Robert Whitmore, Mara's father, retired bank president, and the kind of man who considers punctuality a moral virtue. Nathan. His voice is crisp, formal, the way it gets when he's about to deliver a lecture about fiscal responsibility or proper lawn maintenance. We need to talk. Good morning, Robert. How are you? I received an interesting email this morning. Perhaps you could explain it. Through the kitchen window, I can see Mara's car still in the driveway. She won't be up for another hour, which gives me time to handle this conversation properly. What kind of explanation are you looking for? The kind that tells me why my daughter is apparently having an affair with her married boss. Robert Whitmore doesn't believe in euphemisms or diplomatic language. It's one of the few things I've always respected about him, even when he's using that directness to criticize my career choices or parenting decisions. I'm not sure I can explain Mara's choices, I say carefully. I can only document them. Document them? Nathan, what exactly are you playing at here? I'm not playing at anything. I discovered evidence of inappropriate behavior and shared it with the relevant parties. There's a long pause. Robert is processing this information the way he used to analyze loan applications, methodically, looking for inconsistencies and risk factors. How long have you known? Suspected for 3 months, confirmed last week. And your first instinct was to send anonymous emails rather than address this within the family. It's a fair criticism, and one I've been expecting. With respect, Robert, Mara made this a public matter when she started conducting her affair in public spaces. I just expanded the audience. Another pause. What do you want from us, Nathan? Nothing. I thought you had a right to know what your daughter was doing. What you do with that information is your choice. We'll be driving up this weekend. Don't tell Mara we're coming. The line goes silent. I pour my coffee and check the time. Less than an hour since the email was sent, and already the consequences are rippling outward. The second domino falls at 9:15 a.m. I'm at a client site replacing a failed hard drive when Marco calls. Your boy Alan just got called into a meeting with the ethics committee, he says without preamble. My contact at Meridian says they convened an emergency session first thing this morning. That was fast. Corporate boards don't mess around with liability issues, especially when there's photographic evidence of executives fraternizing with subordinates at company-sponsored events. I can hear typing in the background. Marco, multitasking as usual. What's the likely outcome? Best case scenario for him? Formal reprimand, mandatory sensitivity training, transfer to a different department? Worst case? Immediate termination for policy violations. And Mara? Harder to predict. She's not the supervisor in this relationship, so she has some protection under employment law. But HR departments hate these situations. Creates too much potential for lawsuits and bad publicity. The third domino falls at 11:30 a.m. I'm grabbing lunch at a sandwich shop downtown when I spot a familiar figure at a corner table. Susan Ryder, Alan's wife, sitting alone with a cup of coffee and a tablet computer. She looks exactly like her Facebook photos, elegant, composed, the kind of woman who chairs charity committees and hosts dinner parties for important people. She also looks like someone who's just received some very unpleasant news. Our eyes meet across the restaurant. She studies my face for a moment, then gestures toward the empty chair at her table. It's not really a request. "You must be Nathan," she says as I approach. Her voice is cultured, controlled, with just a hint of steel underneath. "I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope. Actually, I've never heard anything about you at all, which is interesting, considering your wife works so closely with my husband." I sit down, trying to read her expression. Susan Ryder is clearly intelligent, clearly angry, but she's also maintaining the kind of social composure that comes from years of practice. "I assume you received my email." "I did. Very informative. Very thorough." She turns the tablet toward me, showing Alan's Facebook profile. "I've been doing some research of my own this morning. Amazing what you can find when you know what to look for." The screen displays a timeline of photos and posts going back several months. She's highlighted dates and locations, cross-referenced them with credit card statements and calendar entries. It's the kind of systematic analysis that would make an FBI investigator proud. "How long?" she asks. "I started noticing changes about 3 months ago. Confirmed it last week." 3 months. She nods slowly. "That matches my timeline. Alan's been working a lot of late nights recently, very dedicated to his career advancement." There's something in her tone that suggests Susan Ryder is not someone you want as an enemy. She has the kind of quiet fury that builds pressure slowly and then explodes without warning. "What will you do?" I ask. What any rational person would do when they discover their spouse is having an affair. I've already called my attorney. She closes the tablet and looks directly at me. "The question is, what will you do?" "I'm still deciding. May I offer some advice? Please. Don't let them control the narrative. People like Alan, people like your wife, they're very good at making themselves the victims in these situations. They'll claim it was just friendship that got out of hand, or blame work stress, or find some way to make it your fault for not being attentive enough." She stands up, gathering her purse and tablet with practiced efficiency. "Thank you for the information. It was exactly what I needed to make some important decisions." After she leaves, I sit in the sandwich shop for another 20 minutes, thinking about narratives and control and the difference between being a victim and being a casualty. The fourth domino falls at 2:45 p.m. Jeremy calls while I'm driving between client appointments. He never calls during school hours unless something's wrong. "Dad, can you pick me up early today?" "What's wrong?" "Mom showed up at school. She's really upset about something. She wants to talk to me, but I told the office I needed to call you first." My hands tighten on the steering wheel. Mara must have learned about the email, probably when Alan got called into his meeting with the ethics committee. Now she's panicking, trying to control the damage by involving Jeremy. "Where are you now?" "Principal's office. Mom's in the hallway. She keeps asking me if you've said anything about her work situation." "Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't talk to your mother until I arrive." "Okay. Dad, She looks really scared. I make it to Jeremy's school in 8 minutes, parking next to Mara's Mercedes in the visitor lot. Through the office windows, I can see her pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. She's wearing the same blue blouse from this morning, but now it's wrinkled and her hair is disheveled. Jeremy meets me at the entrance, backpack slung over his shoulder. "She's been here for an hour," he says quietly. "Keeps asking the secretary if she can take me home early for a family emergency." "What did you tell them?" "That I needed to talk to you first. Mrs. Patterson said that was the right thing to do." Smart kid. And smart secretary, apparently. Mara spots us through the window and rushes outside, her heels clicking on the concrete steps. "Nathan, thank God you're here. We need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding at work and—" "Not here," I interrupt. "Not in front of Jeremy. This affects him too. Someone is spreading lies about me, trying to destroy our family, and I need to know if you—" "Jeremy, get in my truck." "Nathan, please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. Someone sent these horrible emails to my parents, to Alan's wife, to the corporate board. They're taking things completely out of context and—" "Get in the truck, Jeremy." My son looks between us, seeing something in my expression that tells him this is not the time for questions or negotiations. He climbs into the passenger seat and closes the door. "You did this," Mara says quietly. It's not a question. "I shared information that was already publicly available. What people do with that information is their choice. You destroyed my career, my reputation, my relationship with my parents. I didn't do any of those things. You did, when you decided that late-night strategic planning sessions were more important than your marriage." For a moment, her composure cracks completely. I see the woman I married 15 years ago, vulnerable and frightened and looking for someone to blame for the consequences of her choices. Then the mask slides back into place, and she's once again the HR professional who knows how to manage difficult conversations. "We'll discuss this at home," she says, "after Jeremy goes to bed." "No, we won't. I'll be staying at Marco's tonight. Jeremy can choose where he wants to be." I climb into my truck and start the engine. Through the windshield, I watch Mara standing alone in the school parking lot, finally understanding that her carefully constructed double life has collapsed completely. The fifth domino falls at 4:20 p.m. Marco calls while Jeremy and I are at the grocery store, stocking up on essentials for our temporary relocation. "Alan Ryder has been terminated," he says, "effective immediately. Violation of company fraternization policy, misuse of corporate resources, conduct detrimental to company reputation." That was fast. Meridian doesn't mess around. They've been through harassment lawsuits before. They'd rather cut their losses than risk bad publicity. Jeremy is examining cereal boxes with the kind of intense focus that suggests he's listening to every word of my conversation. What about Mara? Still employed, but she's been moved to a different department. No more direct reporting relationship with Alan. Probably looking at a formal reprimand and mandatory counseling. And Alan's wife? Filed for divorce this afternoon. Apparently she's been documenting suspicious behavior for months. Your email just gave her the final piece of evidence she needed. After we finish shopping, Jeremy and I drive to Marco's apartment. It's a bachelor pad in every sense. Leather furniture, enormous television, refrigerator stocked with beer and leftover pizza. But it's also clean, comfortable, and most importantly, neutral territory. "You can take the guest room," Marco tells Jeremy. "Cable TV, gaming console, mini fridge, everything a growing teenager needs to survive a family crisis." Jeremy nods solemnly, understanding that this is serious business requiring adult-level maturity. That evening, while Jeremy explores his temporary living situation, Marco and I sit on the balcony drinking beer and watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "How do you feel?" he asks. It's a good question. I should feel vindicated, or satisfied, or at least relieved that the truth is finally out in the open. Instead, I mostly feel tired. Like I just burned down my own house to get rid of the termites. Sometimes that's the only option. Jeremy asked me yesterday if he'd have to choose sides if we got divorced. I told him not to borrow trouble. Smart kid. Takes after his father. My phone buzzes with a text message from Mara. We need to talk. This doesn't have to be the end of everything. I show the message to Marco, who reads it and shakes his head. Classic damage control. She's going to try to convince you this was all a misunderstanding, that she was just friends with Alan, that you overreacted to innocent workplace socializing. Will it work? Depends. Do you want it to work? I think about 15 years of marriage, about shared dreams and joint bank accounts, and the assumption that we were building something together. I think about Jeremy's science projects and family dinners and all the small moments that make up a life. Then I think about Mara humming while she planned another late night with Alan, and I know the answer. No, I say. I don't think it will. The nuclear option arrives on a Tuesday morning, delivered by certified mail to Marco's apartment. Divorce papers. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading the legal documents, when Jeremy wanders in wearing pajamas and bedhead. What's that? Official paperwork. Your mother wants to make our separation permanent. He pours himself a bowl of cereal and sits down across from me, studying the documents with the kind of analytical attention he usually reserves for video game strategy guides. She's asking for the house, he observes, and the cars, and half my retirement fund, and primary custody of you. Primary custody means I'd live with her most of the time, right? That's the idea. Jeremy considers this while crunching through his cereal. What if I don't want to? Then we fight it in court. But family judges usually prefer to keep kids with their mothers, especially in cases involving marital infidelity. Even when the mother is the one who cheated? The casual way he says it, like he's discussing the weather, tells me that Jeremy understands more about this situation than I've been giving him credit for. How long have you known? About Mom and her boss, since the beginning. She started staying late right after that company retreat in June. Came home different, happier but not about us. I set down the divorce papers and really look at my son. 13 years old, but already developing the kind of situational awareness that comes from living in a household where the adults aren't being completely honest with each other. Why didn't you say anything? I figured you'd notice eventually. You notice everything else. Marco emerges from his bedroom, already dressed for work despite the early hour. He glances at the divorce papers spread across his kitchen table and whistles softly. She's not messing around. How much is she asking for? Everything that isn't nailed down, plus half of what is. Standard opening gambit. Her attorney is probably telling her to ask for the moon and negotiate down from there. Jeremy looks up from his cereal. Can we fight it? We can try, but divorce court is expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally brutal. Sometimes it's better to negotiate a settlement and move on with your life. What if we don't want to move on? Jeremy asks. What if we want to win? Marco grins. Now you're talking like a Kavanaugh. Your dad's got that same stubborn streak. After Jeremy leaves for school, Marco and I discuss strategy over fresh coffee. He's got contacts in the legal community, investigators who specialize in matrimonial cases, experts who can document patterns of deception and financial misconduct. How dirty do you want to get? He asks. As dirty as necessary to protect Jeremy. Fair enough. But remember, once we start down this road, Mara's going to fight back. She's got her own resources, her own allies, her own version of events. Let her try. The counterattack begins that afternoon. I'm at a client site, replacing a corrupted server, when my phone starts buzzing with calls from numbers I don't recognize. The first few go to voicemail, but eventually, curiosity gets the better of me. Nathan Kavanaugh. This is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We're doing a story about workplace harassment and retaliation, and we understand you might have some relevant information. I hang up immediately, but the calls keep coming. Local news stations, newspaper reporters, even a blogger who covers corporate scandals. Somehow word has leaked about the Meridian Solutions situation, and now everyone wants to interview the whistleblower who exposed the affair. The problem is, I never wanted to be a whistleblower. I just wanted my wife to stop lying to me. Marco calls during my lunch break. You're famous. Channel 7 just ran a story about executive misconduct at Meridian Solutions. They didn't mention names, but they're clearly fishing for more information. How did they find out? Could be anyone. Disgruntled employee, corporate board member, maybe even Alan or Mara trying to control the narrative by getting their side of the story out first. What do I do? Nothing. Don't talk to reporters, don't confirm or deny anything, don't get drawn into a public relations battle. Let the lawyers handle it. But the damage is already done. By evening, the story has spread to social media, where anonymous accounts are sharing details about the affair, the divorce, and the family caught in the middle. Someone, probably one of Mara's friends, has posted photos of Jeremy and me, along with speculation about my motives and mental state. The comments are brutal. Typical bitter husband trying to destroy his wife's career. He probably drove her into another man's arms. Those poor children. Imagine having such a vindictive father. Jeremy finds the posts before I can warn him. I come home from work to find him sitting in Marco's living room, laptop open, reading through dozens of comments about our family situation. They're saying you're crazy, he says, without looking up. People say a lot of things online. Most of it isn't true. They're saying Mom was just trying to advance her career, and you got jealous and tried to sabotage her. What do you think? He closes the laptop and looks at me directly. I think Mom made her choice, and now she's trying to make it your fault. That's a pretty mature perspective for a 13-year-old. I've had a lot of practice being mature lately. The next morning brings fresh complications. Jeremy's school calls to report that several reporters have been asking questions about our family situation. Mara's parents have driven up from Florida, and they want to meet with me to discuss the situation like adults. And my own mother has left 3 voicemails asking why she had to learn about my divorce from the evening news. But the most interesting development comes from an unexpected source. Susan Ryder calls while I'm having breakfast. I hope you don't mind me contacting you directly, she says. I got your number from the phone book. Very old-fashioned of me. Not at all. How are you holding up? Better than expected, actually. It's amazing how liberating the truth can be, even when it's painful. I imagine so. The reason I'm calling is that I have some information that might be useful to you. About your wife and my soon-to-be ex-husband. What kind of information? The kind that suggests their relationship was more serious than either of them has admitted. Would you be interested in meeting for coffee? An hour later, we're sitting in the same sandwich shop where we first met. But this time, Susan has brought a folder full of documents. I've been married to Alan for 22 years, she begins. I know his patterns, his habits, his tells when he's being dishonest. This affair wasn't just about physical attraction or workplace convenience. He was planning to leave me. She slides a stack of papers across the table. Bank statements, credit card records, real estate listings, even a draft of a resignation letter from Meridian Solutions. He was preparing for a new life, new job, new city, new identity. And based on these records, your wife was preparing to join him. The evidence is comprehensive and damning. Joint credit card applications, apartment rental agreements in Chicago, even airline reservations for a trip to Hawaii scheduled for next month. They were going to disappear together? That was the plan. Alan would resign from Meridian, claim he was pursuing new opportunities. Your wife would follow a few months later, citing family reasons or career advancement. They'd start fresh somewhere else, leaving their spouses and children to pick up the pieces. I study the documents, trying to process the scope of the deception. This wasn't just an affair, it was a complete abandonment of their existing lives. Why are you showing me this? Because I don't want them to control the narrative. Alan's already trying to claim this was just a workplace friendship that got out of hand. He's telling people that you're a jealous husband who misinterpreted innocent professional interactions. And Mara? According to my sources, she's claiming emotional abuse, says you were controlling and suspicious, that she sought comfort from a colleague because her marriage was already over. Susan closes the folder and looks at me directly. I don't know you well, Nathan, but I know Alan, and I know that people like him don't have affairs. They have exit strategies. Your wife wasn't just cheating on you. She was planning to abandon you and your son. After Susan leaves, I sit in the sandwich shop for another hour, staring at the folder full of evidence. Everything I thought I knew about the situation has shifted again. Mara wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to run away with Alan, leaving Jeremy and me to figure out what went wrong. The betrayal runs deeper than I imagined. That afternoon, I call my attorney and schedule an emergency meeting. The divorce just became a war, and I need better weapons. The real battle is about to begin. The ambush comes on a Thursday evening in October, 3 weeks after the divorce papers were filed. Jeremy and I are at the house, our house despite what Mara's lawyers claim, packing up more of our belongings when we hear cars pulling into the driveway. Through the living room window, I see Mara's Mercedes, followed by a black Audi I don't recognize. Dad? Jeremy looks up from the box of books he's been organizing. Mom's here, and she brought someone. The someone turns out to be Alan Ryder, looking considerably less polished than in his corporate headshots. His suit is wrinkled, his hair needs cutting, and he has the desperate expression of a man whose carefully constructed life has collapsed in spectacular fashion. They're standing on my front porch like door-to-door salespeople, except they're selling a narrative I'm not interested in buying. We need to talk, Mara says when I open the door. All of us, like adults. Jeremy, go upstairs. I want to stay. Upstairs. Now. My son recognizes the tone that means this is not a negotiation. He disappears toward his bedroom, but I can hear his footsteps stop at the top of the stairs. He's listening, which is probably smart. This conversation affects his future, too. You can't keep hiding from this, Alan says, stepping forward with the kind of aggressive confidence that probably worked well in corporate boardrooms. We need to clear the air, establish some ground rules for moving forward. Ground rules? For the divorce proceedings, for Jeremy's custody arrangement, for how we're all going to coexist in this community. I study Alan Ryder, really look at him, and try to understand what Mara saw in this man. He's handsome enough, I suppose, in a generic corporate executive way. Well-dressed, well-spoken, the kind of person who looks good in family Christmas photos and charity fundraiser pictures. But there's something hollow underneath the polish. Something that suggests he's spent so much time managing his image that he's forgotten who he actually is. You're not part of this conversation, I tell him. This is between me and my wife. Actually, I am part of it. Mara and I are planning to be married after your divorce is finalized. That makes me Jeremy's stepfather, which means I have a legitimate interest in his welfare. The casual way he says it, like he's discussing quarterly projections, tells me everything I need to know about Alan Ryder's character. He's the kind of man who destroys other people's families and then expects to be welcomed as a reasonable participant in the cleanup process. Over my body, I say quietly. Nathan, please. Mara steps between us, playing peacemaker. We're all adults here. We can work this out without lawyers and court battles and public drama. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you two have already made all the important decisions. New city, new life, new family structure. The only thing left is convincing everyone else to go along with your plan. Something flickers across Mara's face. Surprise, maybe guilt. But Alan remains impassive. I don't know what you think you know, he says, but you're obviously operating from incomplete information. Am I? I pull out my phone and start reading from Susan Ryder's evidence file. Joint credit card application dated September 15th. Apartment rental agreement in Chicago dated September 22nd. Airline reservations for 2 passengers traveling to Hawaii on November 18th. Now Alan looks less confident. Where did you get that information? From your wife. Ex-wife, I should say. She's very thorough when it comes to documenting financial misconduct. Those were just contingency plans, in case the situation at Meridian became untenable. Contingency plans that involved abandoning your children and disappearing to Hawaii? Nobody was abandoning anyone. We were exploring options for a fresh start, without consulting the people whose lives you were planning to disrupt. Mara tries a different approach. Nathan, I know you're hurt. I know this isn't what either of us planned when we got married, but we can't change what's happened. We can only decide how to move forward. You're right. We can't change what happened. You decided that your marriage vows were less important than your career advancement. You decided that Jeremy's stability was less important than your personal happiness. You decided that 15 years of partnership meant nothing compared to whatever Alan was offering. That's not fair. Fair? I laugh, but there's no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having an honest conversation about your feelings before you started making plans with another man. Fair would have been considering Jeremy's welfare before you decided to blow up his family. Fair would have been treating me like a partner instead of an obstacle to your new life. We tried to handle this discreetly, Alan interjects. We were planning to wait until after the holidays to make any major changes, but you forced our hand with those emails. I shared publicly available information with interested parties. If that forced your hand, maybe you should have kept your hands to yourself in the first place. The conversation continues for another 20 minutes, but it's really just variations on the same theme. Mara and Alan want me to accept their version of events, that this was an innocent workplace relationship that evolved into something deeper, that they tried to handle it responsibly, that my reaction was disproportionate and vindictive. I want them to acknowledge the truth, that they were planning to abandon their existing families, that they showed no consideration for the people they were hurting, that their discreet affair was actually a calculated exit strategy. Neither side is willing to compromise. Finally, Alan plays what he apparently thinks is his trump card. Look, Kavanaugh, I understand you're angry, but you need to think about Jeremy's future. Mara and I can provide him with opportunities you can't. Better schools, college tuition, connections that will help him succeed in life. Are you really going to let your pride stand in the way of your son's welfare? It's the wrong thing to say. Get out of my house. Nathan, get out. Both of you, now. We're just trying to... Get out! My voice carries enough force to rattle the windows. Upstairs, I can hear Jeremy's bedroom door close quietly. He's heard enough. Mara and Alan exchange glances, some silent communication passing between them. Then they head for the door, but Alan pauses on the threshold. This isn't over, he says. We have lawyers too. And we have resources you don't. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You can't win this fight, Kavanaugh. You're outgunned and outfinanced. The smart thing would be to negotiate a reasonable settlement and move on with your life. After they leave, I stand in my living room for a long time, listening to the silence. Then Jeremy appears at the top of the stairs. Dad, you okay? I'm fine. Come down here for a minute. He descends slowly, studying my face with the kind of careful attention that suggests he's trying to gauge my emotional state. They want to take me to Chicago, he says. I heard. I don't want to go. I know. Are you going to let them? I look at my son, 13 years old, caught in the middle of a war he didn't start, forced to make adult decisions about his own future, and I make a promise. Not if I can help it. The next morning, I call Marco and tell him we're done playing defense. What did you have in mind? Something that ends this permanently. Something that makes it clear to everyone involved that Jeremy and I are not going anywhere. How permanent are we talking? Nuclear. Marco is quiet for a moment. You sure about this? Once we cross that line, there's no going back. They crossed the line first. I'm just responding in kind. Fair enough. What do you need? Everything. Financial records, employment history, social media activity, legal documents, personal relationships. I want to know everything about Alan Ryder and everything about how this affair really developed. That's going to take time and money. I have both. And if we find something that destroys them completely, then they should have thought about that before they tried to destroy my family. Marco is quiet again. All right, but we do this smart, clean, legal, and absolutely devastating. No mistakes, no loose ends, no room for them to claim harassment or intimidation. Agreed. Give me 2 weeks. 14 days later, Marco calls with news that changes everything. You're not going to believe what I found, he says. Can you meet me at the office and bring Jeremy? He's going to want to hear this too. An hour later, we're sitting in Marco's office while he spreads documents across his desk like a dealer arranging cards. Alan Ryder isn't just having an affair, he begins. He's been embezzling money from Meridian Solutions for the past 18 months. The evidence is overwhelming. Falsified expense reports, unauthorized transfers, kickbacks from vendors, even outright theft from company accounts. The total amount is over $200,000. How did you find this? Susan Ryder's divorce attorney. They've been investigating Alan's finances as part of the property settlement, and they discovered some interesting discrepancies. Turns out Alan's been funding his lifestyle and his affair with stolen money. Jeremy leans forward, studying the financial records. So he's a criminal? A white-collar criminal, but yes, embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion. He's looking at serious prison time if this gets reported to the authorities. And Mara? That's where it gets interesting. Some of the stolen money was used to pay for things she benefited from. Hotel rooms, restaurant bills, even some of those airline tickets to Hawaii. Legally, that could make her an accessory. I stare at the documents, trying to process the implications. My wife wasn't just having an affair with a married man. She was having an affair with a criminal, and she may have been complicit in his crimes. What do we do with this information? Marco grins. We give them a choice. They can accept a reasonable custody arrangement and disappear quietly, or we can turn this evidence over to the FBI and let them sort it out. That's blackmail. No, that's negotiation. We're offering them a chance to resolve this situation without criminal prosecution. Very generous, considering the circumstances. Jeremy looks up from the financial records. Will this keep them from taking me to Chicago? Kid, after this, they'll be lucky if they're not living in federal prison. That evening, I call Mara and ask her to meet me at the same coffee shop where Susan and I first discussed the evidence. Neutral ground, public space, plenty of witnesses. She arrives 20 minutes late, looking nervous and defensive. Alan isn't with her, which suggests they're already starting to turn on each other. What do you want, Nathan? I slide a manila folder across the table. I want you to look at these documents and then make a very important decision. She opens the folder reluctantly, and I watch her face change as she processes what she's seeing. At first, there's confusion, a slight furrow of her brow as she flips the top page, then recognition, then something closer to panic. Her fingers tighten around the edges as she keeps turning pages, financial records, bank statements, expense reports, each one methodically laid out, dates highlighted, transactions annotated. Together they form a clear, unavoidable picture of Alan's systematic theft from his employer. Not an accident or a lapse, but a pattern sustained over months. The noise of the coffee shop fades into the background, the hiss of the espresso machine, the low murmur of other conversations. All of it becomes irrelevant as I study her reactions. I know exactly which line item she's on when her jaw clenches. I know which receipt makes her swallow hard. Where did you get this? Her voice is quieter than she intends, edged with something brittle. I don't answer immediately, letting the silence do some of the work for me. Does it matter? The question is, What are you going to do about it? I don't know anything about Alan's business finances. She says it quickly, too quickly, like a reflex she's practiced. Really? Because according to these records, stolen company money paid for your hotel rooms, your restaurant dinners, and your planned trip to Hawaii. That makes you an accessory to embezzlement. I keep my tone factual, almost bored, as if I'm explaining a spreadsheet instead of dismantling her defenses. Mara closes the folder and looks around the coffee shop, as if checking for escape routes. Her eyes flick toward the door, then to the windows, then back to me. What do you want? Joint custody of Jeremy. He lives with me during the school year, spends summers and holidays with you. You drop all claims to the house, the cars, and my retirement fund. In exchange, I don't turn this evidence over to the FBI. Her laugh is short and humorless. That's blackmail. That's a plea bargain. Take it or leave it. She's quiet for a long time, staring at the folder like it might burst into flames. Her hand rests on it protectively now, as if closing it somehow keeps the consequences contained. The seconds stretch. People come and go. Someone pulls out a chair nearby. Finally, she looks up at me with an expression I haven't seen in years, genuine fear. Alan doesn't know you have this information. I assume not, since he's still making threats about outgunning and outfinancing me. The irony isn't lost on either of us. If this comes out, it destroys both of us. My career, my reputation, my relationship with my parents, everything. Should have thought about that before you decided to run away with a criminal. There's no satisfaction in saying it, just finality. I didn't know he was stealing money. Her voice cracks, just slightly. But you knew he was married. You knew he had children. You knew you were helping him destroy his family while planning to abandon yours. I lean back, giving her space to sit with that truth. Mara nods slowly, accepting the logic even if she hates it. How long do I have to decide? 24 hours. After that, I turn everything over to the authorities and let them sort it out. She takes the folder and stands up, moving like someone who's just received a terminal diagnosis. Her movements are careful, deliberate, as though the floor might give way beneath her. Nathan, for what it's worth, I really did love you once. I know. That's what makes this so much worse. After she leaves, I sit in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking about love and betrayal and the difference between justice and revenge. I watch the rain streak down the windows and wonder when things stopped being about saving something and started being about surviving it. I don't feel victorious. I feel tired, but steady. My phone buzzes with a text from Jeremy. How did it go? I think we won. I text back. Good. Can we go home now? Yes, we can go home. The next morning, Mara's attorney calls to accept our terms. The divorce will proceed as agreed. Joint custody, fair property division, no criminal charges filed. The language is formal, clean, stripped of emotion, as if none of this ever hurt. Alan Ryder disappears from town within a week, apparently deciding that a fresh start in another state is preferable to facing federal investigators. Rumors circulate, then fade. His name becomes something people avoid mentioning. Mara keeps her job at Meridian Solutions, but she's been transferred to a different department and will never advance beyond her current position. A quiet consequence, but a permanent one. Jeremy and I move back into our house, where we establish new routines and try to build something stable from the wreckage of our old life. Mornings become predictable again, evenings quieter. Slowly, the house feels less like a reminder and more like a shelter. It's not the ending I would have chosen 15 years ago, but it's the ending we earned. And sometimes, that's enough. The rain has stopped, the storm has passed.